So Ryan, there's a rumor out there, being started I think by John Legend, that you are really a child musical prodigy. And this whole story that you learned to play jazz piano this year is not true. So how important was it for you, you did learn to play the piano and played the piano in all of those scenes itself, but how important was that for you to the singing, the dancing, and the piano playing to be all you?
Well, Damien wanted to shoot all of these scenes in one shot, so I really didn't have a damn choice. There was no room to cut in a real piano player. So, but you know, I've always wanted to play, and it just was an opportunity to finally sit down and apply myself. And plus, the music is so beautiful. I really wanted to learn it, and I enjoyed playing it. I still play it. I should be sick of it, but I'm not. So I think that's a testament to how strong the music is too.
And were you a jazz fan before this? Or were you more classical piano? What were you looking to play?
Well, I just wanted to play along to something. You know, I guess I thought I liked jazz, but I really knew very little about it. And the whole process of making this film and working with these wonderful jazz musicians and watching their process and listening to them play. I had a wonderful piano tutor. There's also a great documentary by Ken Burns about jazz for PBS, which I watched the whole time making the film. It was very inspiring, great piece of work as well.
Ryan, what did you think about it when you first read the script? Because it's not that, you know, all tied up with a bow, pretty little Hollywood ending.
I think Damien really knows how to end a movie. He really does. And it was always something that I think every time you read it, it got you, and every time you see it, it does too. You know, it was what we were all working towards, to sort of earn that ending. That was the challenge.
What's the reaction been, Damien? I mean, have you heard a lot about the ending not being what people would expect?
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, in a weird way, this is almost what I wanted. I mean, it's a testament to Ryan and Emma. I think that some people are quite angry with me. But in a way, I guess that's a sign that people, you know, want your characters to be together. I think there's no, but I think for the most part, you know, I always thought of it as not a sad ending, and I think when we were pitching the movie to financiers, and especially Jordan and myself, we would get these sort of quizzical, you know, kind of looks and expressions. I mean, it's, you know, it was bad enough that we were trying to convince people to do like a jazz original musical with Maeve, you know, and my college roommate doing like the directing, the writing, the music.
But don't you think they should end up together?
Yeah. Compounding that with, you know, oh, it's a really romantic love story where they don't wind up together. I tried to like tell people, you know, no, really, like, it's even. I almost tried to like do the commercial game too, where you beat them at their own game. Say, like, if you look at the comps, like, I've used the Notebook. I've used Casablanca, Gone with the Wind, Titanic, Romeo and Juliet. If you kind of count that. I thought love story, the way we were. I thought I was just making such a great argument. It just didn't click with people. So whatever. But we were thankful that Lionsgate eventually just, they were the one place that was kind of like, okay, you guys, you know, keep it original music and keep them apart at the end, and we'll support you.
We talk all the time about movies, you know, being a great place to escape, and especially when things are tough in the real world. And there's a different level that you reached here where it's not just escapism, I felt like we walked in Sebastian and Mia's shoes. And was that, how did you reach that different level where it wasn't just we were watching something else happen and saying, oh, that's a nice world for 2 hours where we're out of our own, but we were there with you guys. It was the emotion I think is what everybody's feeling. We heard it here, gasping and laughing and clapping almost like they were at live theater.
Well, I think obviously movies can be a great way to escape, but it seems like, I think it felt to us like there was a theme in the movie that you don't want to escape, which is the importance of pursuing your dreams despite the obstacles. So it feels like there was you were able to escape, but also you're kind of being reminded of the importance of that. It's not the best answer I've given all night.
Like, looked at me.
Just
helped me. I agree. I guess the only thing I would say also is I think a lot of the musicals that Ryan and I loved and all of us loved were obviously movies that provide hope and joy and optimism, but do it by actually acknowledging that life isn't always, I think you think of something like Being in St. Louis, or I think Relative Cherbourg, or some of those great musicals that are kind of more about ordinary life to me, they acknowledge that ordinary life has its ups and downs, and that you don't always get every single thing. So I guess it's another reason why, again, I thought of this as not a sad ending, and I thought of it, but at the same time, I don't think of it as purely escapist as a movie. I think of it as, hopefully something where it's more like kind of putting on glasses to see the world,
It's a different perspective.
A slightly different perspective, which I guess is what any movies, can do, no matter what the tone. But I think musicals present a certain vision of the world that is just particular, and that I think we wanted to try to update and communicate.
How did you decide on Los Angeles and the style, the color, the past and the current, the mix that you brought it?
I think a lot of it was kind of, working through my own feelings about the city. I grew up on the East Coast, and like a lot of snooty East Coasters, kind of LA seemed like this wasteland. and then I moved here, and it wasn't just that I fell in love with, the kind of gorgeous city that I think it actually is, but that everything that I think is normally something people sometimes criticize LA for when they're outside LA was something that I became really fascinated by. You hear people complain about, well, there's no city center, it's sprawling. I became fascinated by the fact that actually that allows this incredible topography that makes it unlike any other city, and has to do with the history, and I became obsessed with, people say, oh, LA doesn't really have history. Well, as a movie lover, the history of LA is so inextricably tied with movie history, and so I think I became really obsessed with that, and the idea of, oh, well, in LA everyone has their head in the clouds. I wanted to kind of celebrate that as well, the idea of like a city where dreams and reality kind of blend a bit, and where people do pursue their dreams still. It still is a dream factory in many ways, and I think, you can roll your eyes at that, but there's also something I think really poetic about it. Even if the dreams never come true, just the act of people going to a place to pursue them, I think, gives it a kind of incredible energy. So I just wanted to say.
Ryan and Jordan, this next question is for you. From the perspective of a producer and a big star, what was the risk and the challenge of taking on a musical in 2016?
Do you want me to take the big star?
Yeah, take the big star.
Yeah, I got it. There was a lot of no. There was a lot of fear. There was a lot of questions about like how we were going to actually go out and do it. And Lionsgate came to the table ultimately, and really just allowed us to make the version of the film that we'd always sort of dreamed of making. But I'll let Ryan sort of take the other side of that.
I actually met Damien, not about this film, but just we met at a bar near my house, and the later the night got, Damien got more and more passionate and animated about making movies that you didn't want to see on your iPhone, that you wanted to watch in a theater. with an audience. That you wanted to see with people and have that experience, and it just was very infectious. And it wasn't until months later that I read the script for this that I thought, well, he really has a good shot at doing that. So it felt like more than a risk, which I guess it was. It just felt like more like a real opportunity.
Jumping into the musical was exciting for you.
Well, I guess I thought that old Hollywood musicals were a thing of the past, and that it wasn't even something I was dreaming of making, because I didn't think that it would be made anymore. I just thought that ship had sailed, so.
Well, we got Moana.
That's an excellent point.
Justin, Damien, you guys worked on Whiplash, which was you have a very you're obviously like Jordan said, have been friends for a long time, roommates in college, and you worked together on the film last year. But you have a very different style of the way you work together, where you bring usually scoring, music comes in afterwards, it's layered on top. And you guys work very differently together, bringing Justin in from the beginning. Do you want to talk a little bit about your process and how that came about?
Well, I'll pass it up then real quick. Just the quick context being that, yeah, at the very, so the four people at the outset of this, at the very beginning, were Jordan, Jordan's producing, or other producer on this movie, Fred, and Justin. Yeah, Justin and I had met as musicians, actually. I mean, we met in college, but I was drumming, he was playing piano, but we both kind of really bonded over movies and over this idea of putting sort of lush, big 90-piece orchestra sort of sounds and music on the big screen, trying to make that feel like something that was still relevant, still timely. Yeah, so as soon as I started working on this, you were working on it.
Yeah, we like to start really early. We like to know as early as possible what the music or some of the musical ideas are going to be. Themes are really important to us. Melodies are really important to us. Obviously, for a musical, it's particularly important. You need to have a lot of music figured out before the movie's shot. But I think any movie we do, we're going to want to know, and we approach it the same way in Whiplash with the score theme and whatnot. You know, I think we want to know what the main sort of themes are going to be, to have those in mind, you know, when the movie's being made. I think Damien likes that. And also just, I need the time to be able to come up with something that's good enough. And it can take a very, very, very long time to find the right material. I did a little over 1,900 piano demos on this movie. Before I got to arranging vocals or orchestrating, it was just at the piano, finding the themes and the melodies, going down a lot of different roads. So that can take a very long time, and Damien can be very, very demanding and say no to a lot of things, but it's for the best, because, you know, he keeps pushing me until I have sort of the melodies that he believes in and we believe in are really going to stick with people. So yeah, I don't want to get boxed in and have, you know, like pictures locked and I have 4 weeks until the score has to be recorded. We need the time where I can just throw out, just try idea after idea and throw them out, and we can just keep searching for.
Coming at it from a producer's place, I mean, their process was, we were developing it, the music and the script simultaneously, and I don't think there's a world where anyone would have even understood what we were trying to do if we didn't have this holistic package that we were able to kind of show people as we started introducing the project to the town. But this process was, you know, from the very start, it was really clear that they weren't sort of feeding off of each other and developing the music while the script would change, the music would change, and it was yeah, holistic, I think is the word.
Some of the score we figured out during pre-production, like there are large sections of the movie, you know, like in the planetarium and some of the ending sequence where we wanted to have a lot of that kind of sort of created, mocked up to some degree so that Damien would know what he was shooting to, and sort of what that sequence would feel like and how it would be shot. But then, you know, he and Damien and the picture editor recut those sequences, so I had to then kind of reconfigure, recompose, reorchestrate a lot of it to picture, which is just what a film composer does. And then there's just the whole dramatic, I mean, that score, but then you have so many other scenes that there was no score figured out before. You just respond to what's on screen. So I'm watching scenes and I'm responding to the performances and the way they're cutting it and the colors on the screen, and that's sort of what a film composer normally does. It was a little unusual in this situation in the sense that I started at the very beginning of the editorial process, so I was scoring for about 8 months while Damien and Tom were cutting the movie. I had an office next to the editing room, so I wasn't waiting for a locked picture. Just for those 8 months, back and forth, they were giving me scenes, I was giving them cues, and the picture and the score were kind of evolving together. So they were reconfiguring some scenes based on the score cue, and I was obviously scoring based on the picture, and the picture and music were sort of informing each other.
Well, there's so many amazing scenes on screen. I'm curious to what didn't make the cut. We were talking a little bit before we came out about some scenes that almost didn't make it. So what was that process of deciding what made it on screen, what didn't, how much are we not seeing?
I guess, I guess as with every movie, there's stuff that's on the cutting room floor, sometimes stuff that I really liked, but yeah, during the course of editing, there was a lot of, I guess, experimentation, though it seemed maybe more definitive when we were doing it, of just trying to, I look back, I think of it as we were trying to sort of see what the movie needed, what the movie would fail without, especially when it came to some of the musical numbers, and so you might be referring to, for about, 3-4 months of the editing process, we had decided to cut the whole opening sequence on the freeway, and that was because, it just didn't seem to really be, there were other elements around it that turned out to be the problem, but that were kind of all compounding, and so it sort of seemed like it needed to be taken out. We realized actually after we took it out that other problems arose, and that, we wanted to put it back in and cutting other things around it. There used to be a whole big, beautiful overture that Justin wrote and orchestrated, set to, sort of painted opening credits, which that was in the first pages of the script. I always thought part of the reason, there were like 3 reasons for me to do the movie. It was like, it was in terms of sequences in the film, it was the ending, it was the sort of floating up in the planetarium in the middle, and it was this, not the opening traffic number, it was the opening overture. Because you don't have big, full-fledged opening overtures with painted backdrops and all that stuff anymore. So there I felt really like a chump for when we had to cut that. But yeah, stuff just winds up on the cutting room floor, and you kind of, you learn as you go. I'm thankful at least that no musical numbers wound up actually on the cutting room.
No, but we cut about half of the second song, Someone in the Crowd, because we found that we were kind of losing Mia's thread for it. It was following those 3 roommates for much longer, and we were sort of losing the sort of emotional through line for Mia.
Yeah, we had a big choreographed sort of piece in the street with the 3, Sonia, Callie, and Jessica, and those 3 actresses. So that was an example of something where that was a day of shooting that, didn't make it in. You always try, I always feel, again, like I'm always kind of, I tried at the outset before I did this in Whiplash too, trying to figure out before you start shooting what, I only want to be shooting exactly the bare minimum of what I, think I'm going to need, because otherwise you feel like you're wasting time. And you always invariably wind up shooting a lot more than you wind up using in the movie. But I guess I've come to think of it as less actually wasting time, the way it might seem practically, and more, it's actually good maybe to sort of live in scenes that, even if they're not in the movie, or for the actors to live in scenes that maybe don't want it in the movie, or all of us that kind of, it's probably actually part of the process of making it, and probably informs the other scenes, even if you don't wind up using them at the end.
This movie was obviously made for a cinematic experience and to be shown in a theater and that experience. But as there's so many outlets now, I feel like the creative community is just growing because of what's on network television, what's streaming and subscription, what's in theaters. Do you think of that end for your projects and for your whatever you're working on when you first start? And this obviously a little bit different because it is made, you know, a big musical made for the cinema, but when you first look at scripts, when you first start writing, do you have that end place in mind?
I can start. Yeah, 100. For me as a producer, and I work in television and features, so 100%. And even in features, you know, a lot of the smaller movies, I know that they're going to wind up either with a day and date release. And I think the most important thing is, for me, with other filmmakers I work with, is just setting expectations for what the world is right now and being really realistic about like the positives of not necessarily this like big broad theatrical release. I think that there's a lot of positives to going different routes, and you just need to understand what the end game of your work is, and there are a lot of viable end games for your work. It just depends on the size of the work and the intention of the work. But yeah, I definitely have that conversation very clearly with any other writers and or filmmakers I work with about the realities of the current landscape, because it's really important, because setting proper expectations informs the work and the process as you do it.
It's funny answering that question sitting here. So like the end for me was showing at the Cinerama Dome, basically, you know, or beyond that, showing at, you know, not just in a way, not just movie theaters, but there's something to think about a theater like this or a theater like, we were also lucky enough, I think, we were lucky enough recently to be at Grauman's or the Chinese theater. You know, theaters, the way we used to think of theaters, as you know, kind of the movie palace idea, which doesn't really exist anymore, except with some of those theaters that, you know, we're lucky enough in LA to actually have a fair number of them still looking beautiful and playing movies in a beautiful way.
Like the El Capitan Theater.
Exactly. Where you can see
They're playing Milan.
The Rialto is one of those too.
Yeah, so it's like, you know, that trying to make a movie for that experience, you know, I remember Justin and I, when we were prepping this movie, at some point we went to this theater for a retrospective of Lawrence of Arabia, and, you know, just, I don't know, just that, the feeling of hearing like the opening bass drums kind of rumbling as the logos come up and the overture comes up, or feeling just the width of the frame. It's, again, you get it in any movie theater, and to a certain extent you get it on any size screen. The image itself doesn't change, but just that kind of feeling that, you know, used to be part of the course in like the, you know, through the 50s and 60s, and the roadshow kind of idea was something that I kind of wanted.
Yeah, we talked about that from the very beginning. With this picture, for sure, it was always purely cinematic. It was made for almost to be an event in a way, and that was the expectation that we had in going into it. But you know, every film is different.
Really shared by the people we were pitching.
Yeah.
It's like you know, you try to aim high, so that was kind of